Ella sat at the kitchen table, her trembling hands clutching the pen poised above the crisp divorce papers. The air in the room was heavy, thick with words unspoken and wounds unhealed. It was an ordinary day in their small, unremarkable town, a day like any other, except for the fact that Ella's life as she knew it was about to change forever. Liam stood across from her, leaning against the counter with his arms crossed. His face, once so familiar and full of warmth, now seemed like a mask, cool, detached, and unreadable. "You wanted this," he said flatly, his voice devoid of emotion. "We've been over this 100 times. Just sign it, Ella." Ella stared at him, her heart aching at the sight of the man she had once believed would be her forever. 5 years ago, when they had stood together at the altar, their future had seemed so bright, so full of promise. But now, that future was reduced to a few sheets of legal jargon and a cruel, gaping void where love used to be. "I didn't want this, Liam," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I wanted us to fight for what we had. I wanted you to care." Liam exhaled sharply, running a hand through his dark hair. "I cared, Ella. I still care. But we can't keep pretending this is working. You want a family. I want to build my company. We're on different paths, and it's tearing us apart." The words hit her like a slap, though they weren't new. They had been circling this same argument for months, each conversation ending with more distance, more pain. She wanted to scream, to beg him to remember the dreams they had once shared. But what was the point? His mind was made up. The man standing before her wasn't the Liam she had fallen in love with. He was someone else now, someone colder, harder, and utterly unreachable. Ella's eyes drifted to the small, crumpled object on the table beside the divorce papers. The pregnancy test. She had found out just a week ago, and the timing couldn't have been worse. After months of trying, of hoping, the 2 pink lines had finally appeared. But instead of joy, the discovery had brought her a wave of despair. How could she bring a child into a world where its parents were on the brink of falling apart? She had thought about telling him. She had rehearsed the words in her mind 1,000 times. But every time she opened her mouth, fear stopped her. What if he saw the pregnancy as a trap? What if he resented her, resented the child, for tying him down when all he wanted was freedom? And now, as she sat staring at the papers that would sever their bond, the words seemed even more impossible to say. "I hope you find what you're looking for," Ella said finally, her voice steady despite the tears pooling in her eyes. She picked up the pen and, with a deep, shuddering breath, signed her name at the bottom of the page. It felt like signing away her soul. Liam's face softened for a brief moment, but he said nothing. He took the papers, folded them neatly, and placed them in his briefcase. "I'll have my lawyer finalize everything," he said, his tone businesslike. "Take care of yourself, Ella." And then he was gone. Just like that, the man who had once promised her forever walked out the door, leaving her alone in the silence of their now empty home. For a long time, Ella sat there, staring at the spot where Liam had stood. The pregnancy test was still on the table, a cruel reminder of everything she had lost and everything she still stood to lose. She reached for it, her fingers brushing the tiny plastic stick, and in a sudden burst of anger and heartbreak, she tore it in half. It was irrational, childish even, but it felt good to destroy something, even if it couldn't change anything. Hours passed, though Ella barely noticed. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the room grew dim, the shadows creeping in like uninvited guests. Finally, she stood, her legs unsteady beneath her, and began to pack. She didn't know where she was going, only that she couldn't stay here. This house, this town, it was all too much, too full of memories that hurt to breathe in. By the time the clock struck midnight, Ella was driving down the empty highway, her car packed with whatever she could grab in those few frantic hours. The town lights faded in her rearview mirror, and for the first time in years, she felt a strange sense of freedom. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. The next few days were a blur. Ella checked into a small motel in a neighboring city, using cash to avoid leaving a trail. She found a job at a local diner, pouring coffee and serving pancakes to truckers and tourists. It wasn't glamorous, but it was enough to keep her afloat while she figured out her next move. As the weeks turned into months, Ella began to rebuild her life, piece by fragile piece. She found a tiny apartment, started taking classes at the local community college, and even began volunteering at a women's shelter. The work was hard but fulfilling, and it gave her a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years. But the secret she carried weighed heavily on her. Every night, as she lay in bed staring at the cracked ceiling, she thought about the baby she had lost, the child that might have been. She wondered if Liam ever thought about her, if he regretted the way things had ended. But those thoughts were a dead end, a spiral of pain she couldn't afford to fall into. 5 years later, Ella's life was unrecognizable. She had built something beautiful out of the ashes of her old life, creating a new identity for herself as a strong, independent woman. But the past has a way of catching up with you, no matter how far you run. And one ordinary day, as she was setting up for a charity event at the shelter, she turned around and found herself face to face with Liam. Liam sat in his corner office, staring out at the city skyline as rain streaked down the glass windows. The view was breathtaking, a testament to his success. 5 years ago, his startup had been little more than an idea sketched on a napkin. Now, it was a billion-dollar enterprise, his name regularly appearing in business magazines, hailed as a visionary genius. Yet, for all the praise and accolades, Liam felt an emptiness he couldn't shake. His assistant knocked on the door, snapping him out of his thoughts. "Mr. Hayes, the board meeting starts in 10 minutes. He nodded absently. "I'll be there." As the door closed, Liam leaned back in his chair, running a hand over his face. For all the material success he'd achieved, his personal life was a stark contrast. His once close-knit group of friends had faded into acquaintances, replaced by colleagues and business contacts. And Ella, well, he hadn't allowed himself to think of her in years, though she haunted him in ways he couldn't explain. Their divorce had been clean and quick, but her disappearance from their small town had left a void. At first, Liam had told himself he didn't care. He'd buried himself in work, telling himself it was for the best, that Ella would find her own way just as he was finding his. But over time, the certainty of that thought began to erode. Questions lingered in the quiet moments, questions he had no answers to. Where had she gone? Was she happy? Did she think of him at all? As he prepared for the meeting, Liam found himself distracted by memories of their last conversation. Her face, tear-streaked and full of pain, flashed through his mind. He remembered the way her voice had cracked when she said she had wanted him to care. The guilt was a constant hum beneath the surface, one he had learned to live with but never fully silence. The meeting was a blur, his mind elsewhere. By the time he returned to his office, his assistant was waiting with a stack of mail. "This came for you. It's from the foundation you've been supporting." She handed him a thick envelope. Liam frowned. He had set up the trust years ago, a way to give back without drawing attention. It had been his one concession to the part of him that still longed to do something meaningful. The foundation focused on helping single mothers, a cause he had chosen impulsively but which now felt oddly significant. He opened the envelope and skimmed the contents. A gala was being held in honor of the foundation's success, and he was invited as a major contributor. For a moment, he considered skipping it. These events were always the same: polished speeches, forced smiles, and hollow conversations. But something about the invitation tugged at him, a feeling he couldn't quite place. A week later, Liam found himself standing in the grand ballroom of a downtown hotel, nursing a glass of champagne. The room was filled with well-dressed guests, the kind of people who wore their wealth like armor. He scanned the crowd, listening half-heartedly to the speeches, until one voice caught his attention. "Please welcome our director, Ella Foster, who has been the heart and soul of this foundation." Liam's glass nearly slipped from his hand as he turned toward the stage. There she was, stepping into the spotlight, her presence commanding and confident. She looked radiant, her once soft demeanor replaced with a quiet strength that took his breath away. She wore a simple navy dress, her hair pulled back, and as she began to speak, the room fell silent. Ella's voice was calm and assured, but as Liam listened to her talk about the Foundation's mission and the lives they had changed, he couldn't help but feel a pang of disbelief. This was the same woman who had once doubted herself at every turn, who had struggled to find her place in the world. And now, she was standing before a room full of influential people, holding their attention like it was the easiest thing in the world. He wanted to go to her, to say something, but his feet felt glued to the floor. As the crowd erupted in applause, Ella stepped down from the stage and disappeared into the throng of guests. Liam followed at a distance, his heart pounding. When he finally found her, she was standing near the buffet table, talking to a group of donors. He hesitated, unsure of what to say or how she would react. But then she turned, her eyes meeting his, and the world seemed to tilt. "Liam," she said, her voice steady but guarded. "Ella," he managed, his throat dry. "It's been a long time." Her expression was unreadable, a mixture of surprise and something else he couldn't quite name. "It has," she said simply. For a moment, they just stood there, the noise of the gala fading into the background. Finally, Liam cleared his throat. "You look, well." "Thank you," she said. "You too." He wanted to ask her 1,000 questions, but none of them felt right. Instead, he blurted out the first thing that came to mind. "I didn't know you were involved with this foundation." Ella tilted her head, a hint of a smile on her lips. "I started it," she said. "After everything, I needed something to focus on. Helping other women seemed like the right thing to do." Liam nodded, his chest tightening. "You've done an incredible job. The work you're doing, it's amazing." "Thank you," she said again, her tone polite but distant. Before he could say more, someone approached Ella, pulling her into another conversation. Liam watched as she moved through the crowd, poised and self-assured. He felt a strange mix of pride and regret, the weight of his choices pressing down on him. As the night wore on, Liam found himself unable to leave. He stayed in the background, watching Ella as she interacted with the guests, her laughter ringing out like a melody he hadn't heard in years. When the gala finally ended, he lingered by the door, waiting for her. "Do you have a minute?" he asked as she walked past. Ella hesitated, then nodded. "Sure." They stepped outside into the cool night air, the city lights casting a soft glow. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Liam broke the silence. "I never stop thinking about you," he admitted, his voice low. "I know I have no right to say that, but it's true." Ella looked at him, her expression unreadable. "Why now, Liam? Why are you here?" "I don't know," he said honestly. "But seeing you tonight, it made me realize how much I've missed." She sighed, crossing her arms. "You made your choice, Liam. We both did. And I've moved on. I've built a life for myself, one that doesn't revolve around you." "I know," he said. "And I'm happy for you. I really am. But I can't help wondering if there's still a chance to make things right." Ella shook her head, a sad smile on her face. "You can't undo the past. And honestly, I don't think I'd want to. Everything that happened, it brought me here. It made me who I am." Liam nodded, his chest aching. "I'm proud of you, Ella. More than you'll ever know." "Thank you," she said softly. "And I hope you find what you're looking for, Liam. But it's not me." With that, she turned and walked away, leaving Liam standing alone under the city lights. For the first time in years, he felt the full weight of his choices, the realization that some things could never be undone. But as he watched Ella disappear into the night, he also felt a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, he could find a way to start over. In the days following the gala, Liam couldn't shake the image of Ella from his mind. Her calm confidence, the way she moved through the crowd, her words that seemed to carry both strength and finality, it all lingered like an echo. He'd thought time would dull the sharp edges of their past, but seeing her had reopened old wounds he didn't even know were still there. Back in his office, Liam tried to focus on his work, but everything felt hollow. The numbers, the meetings, the deals, it all seemed insignificant compared to the whirlwind of emotions inside him. He had spent so many years building an empire, telling himself that success would fill the void left by Ella. But now, sitting in his towering office with the world at his feet, he felt more lost than ever. He replayed their brief conversation over and over in his mind. The way she had looked at him, calm, composed, yet distant, felt like a mirror reflecting the consequences of his choices. He had pushed her away, and she had built a life without him. But there was something she had said, something he couldn't forget: everything that happened brought me here. It made me who I am. Those words stuck with him. They were a reminder of how much Ella had grown, how much she had changed since they last stood face to face in that small-town courthouse where they signed the divorce papers. But more than that, they were a challenge. Liam realized he didn't just miss Ella, he missed the person he used to be when he was with her. The man who believed in more than just profits and power. One evening, unable to focus on anything else, Liam found himself typing Ella's name into a search engine. Articles about the foundation flooded the screen, accompanied by photos of her at various events. She had become something of a local hero, celebrated for her dedication to helping single mothers. The more he read, the more he realized how much he didn't know about the life she had built. He stumbled across a feature article that told her story, her early struggles, the challenges she faced after their divorce, and how she had turned her pain into purpose. Liam read every word, his chest tightening with every sentence. She had gone through so much more than he had ever imagined, and she had come out the other side stronger. The article mentioned a community center she had opened, a place where women could find support, childcare, and job training. It was a cornerstone of the foundation's work, and it was located in the same small town where they had once lived. The next morning, Liam made a decision. He cleared his schedule, cancelled his meetings, and booked a flight. He needed to see the place for himself, to understand the world Ella had built and perhaps, in some small way, to feel closer to her. When Liam arrived in the town, it was as though he had stepped back in time. The streets were familiar, yet they carried the weight of memories he had tried to forget. The coffee shop where they used to meet was still there, though it had a new coat of paint. The park where they spent lazy Sundays looked exactly the same, except for the children playing on the new swings. Everywhere he looked, he saw remnants of their life together. The community center was located on the edge of town, in a modest building with a bright, welcoming facade. As Liam approached, he felt a mix of nerves and anticipation. He wasn't sure what he was looking for, but he knew he needed to be here. Inside, the atmosphere was warm and bustling. Women sat in small groups, chatting and sharing stories, while children played in a supervised area. Volunteers moved through the space, offering help and support. It was a far cry from the sterile boardrooms Liam was used to, but there was something about the energy of the place that felt real. He wandered through the center, observing the people and the programs. A young mother was learning computer skills in one room, while in another, a group of women discussed financial planning. Everywhere he looked, he saw hope and determination. It was humbling, and for the first time in a long time, Liam felt a sense of purpose beyond himself. As he turned a corner, he saw a bulletin board filled with photos and stories of the women who had been helped by the foundation. One photo in particular caught his eye. It was of Ella, standing with a group of women, her arm around a young mother holding a baby. She was smiling, but it was a different kind of smile than the one he remembered. This was a smile born of fulfillment and hard-won joy. "Can I help you?" a voice said from behind him. Liam turned to see an older woman with kind eyes and a clipboard in her hand. She was clearly one of the staff members, and she looked at him with polite curiosity. "I'm just visiting," he said, realizing he hadn't thought of an explanation for why he was there. "This is an incredible place." The woman smiled. "It is. Ella's done wonders here. She's not just our director, she's our heart. You should meet her. She's in her office." Liam hesitated. He hadn't planned to see Ella again so soon, but the opportunity was right in front of him. Before he could overthink it, he nodded. "Thank you." The woman led him down a hallway to a small office at the end. She knocked lightly on the door before pushing it open. "Ella, there's someone here to see you." Ella looked up from her desk, her expression shifting from surprise to guarded curiosity when she saw Liam. "Liam," she said, standing up. "What are you doing here?" The staff member excused herself, leaving them alone. Liam stepped into the office, feeling the weight of the moment. "I wanted to see the center," he said. "I wanted to see what you've built." Ella crossed her arms, leaning against the edge of her desk. "And now that you have..." "It's incredible," he said earnestly. "You've created something truly meaningful. I'm proud of you." She raised an eyebrow, her expression unreadable. "Why are you really here, Liam? This isn't just about the center." He took a deep breath, searching for the right words. "I don't know what I expected to find, but being here, seeing what you've done, it's made me realize how much I've missed. Not just you, but this. A life that actually matters." Ella studied him for a moment, her eyes searching his face. "It's not as simple as just realizing that, Liam. This took years of hard work, sacrifice, and pain. You can't just walk in here and expect to fix things." "I'm not trying to fix anything," he said quickly. "I know I can't change the past. But I want to understand. I want to be a part of something real again." Ella sighed, her gaze softening ever so slightly. "You've always been good with words, Liam. But words aren't enough. If you really want to change, you have to show it." He nodded, a flicker of determination sparking in his chest. "I will," he said. "Whatever it takes." Ella didn't respond immediately. Instead, she looked at him with a mixture of hope and caution, as if she wasn't sure whether to believe him. "We'll see," she said finally. As Liam left the office, he felt a strange mix of emotions, hope, regret, and a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. For the first time in a long time, he felt like he was on the brink of something meaningful. The question was, would he rise to the challenge? The days following Liam's visit to the community center were a whirlwind of emotions for both him and Ella. For Ella, seeing Liam walk through her office door had been a shock she hadn't anticipated. It wasn't anger or bitterness she felt anymore, those emotions had long since dulled with time. Instead, there was a strange mixture of curiosity and guarded hope. Liam, the man who had once been her entire world, had reappeared in a life she had worked so hard to rebuild without him. For Liam, the visit to the center had been a wake-up call. The man he saw reflected in Ella's eyes was not the man he wanted to be. Her words lingered in his mind, words aren't enough. He knew she was right. If he truly wanted to make amends, to show Ella that he had changed, he had to take action. But what kind of action? How could he prove to her, and to himself, that he was capable of more than just empty promises? Determined to start somewhere, Liam extended his stay in the town. He rented a modest room at a local inn, eschewing the luxury he was accustomed to. The town, once a place of bittersweet memories, now felt like a chance to rediscover something he had lost. Each day, he walked the streets, revisiting places that had once been part of their shared life. The diner where they'd had their first date. The library where Ella used to spend hours reading. The small park bench where they'd sat on quiet evenings, talking about their dreams. Everything was the same, yet entirely different. One morning, Liam made his way back to the community center. He wasn't sure if Ella would welcome him, but he was determined to show her that he was serious. He found her in the main hall, helping a group of women organize donated clothing. She looked up when she saw him, a flicker of surprise crossing her face. "What are you doing here again?" she asked, her tone more curious than accusatory. "I want to help," Liam said simply. Ella raised an eyebrow. "Help? Liam, this isn't some corporate project you can just throw money at." "I'm not here to throw money," he replied. "I mean, I can if that's what you need. But I want to do more than that. I want to learn. I want to contribute." Ella hesitated. She wasn't sure if Liam's sudden interest in the center was genuine or just another fleeting attempt to ease his guilt. But something in his expression gave her pause. He looked earnest, almost vulnerable, in a way she hadn't seen before. "Fine," she said finally. "But don't expect any special treatment. You'll work just like everyone else." Liam nodded, grateful for the chance. That day, he found himself sorting through boxes of donated items, cleaning the facility, and even helping with childcare. It was humbling, exhausting work, and for the first time in years, he felt a sense of accomplishment that had nothing to do with profits or deals. The people at the center welcomed him cautiously, their initial skepticism giving way as they saw his determination to help. As the days turned into weeks, Liam began to form connections with the people at the center. He listened to their stories, their struggles, and their triumphs. He was particularly moved by a young mother named Maria, who had fled an abusive relationship with nothing but her 2-year-old son. The center had given her a fresh start, and she spoke of Ella with deep gratitude. "She saved me," Maria said one afternoon as they worked together in the kitchen. "I don't know where I'd be without her. She gave me hope when I had none." Hearing these stories only deepened Liam's respect for Ella. She had created something truly remarkable, something that went far beyond what he had ever imagined. He began to see her not just as the woman he had loved and lost, but as a force of change, a beacon of hope for so many people. One evening, as the center was winding down for the day, Liam found Ella in her office. She was reviewing paperwork, her brow furrowed in concentration. He knocked lightly on the doorframe, and she looked up, startled. "You've been working hard," she said, her tone softer than usual. "I've learned a lot," he admitted. "About the center. About the people here. About you." Ella leaned back in her chair, studying him. "And what have you learned about me, Liam?" "That you're incredible," he said without hesitation. "I always knew you were strong, but this, what you've built here, it's beyond anything I could have imagined. I'm sorry I wasn't there to see it from the start." Ella's expression softened, but there was still a hint of caution in her eyes. "You walked away, Liam. And I had to figure out how to stand on my own. I had to fight for this, for everything I've built. And I'm proud of it." "You should be," he said. "And I don't expect you to forgive me, or to let me back into your life. But I want you to know that I see you now. I see everything you've done, and I'm in awe of you." Ella looked away, her emotions flickering across her face. She wanted to believe him, but trust was something that had to be earned. "Words aren't enough, remember," she said quietly. Liam nodded. "I know. And I'm not done proving it." In the weeks that followed, Liam became an integral part of the center's operations. He used his business acumen to help streamline processes, secure funding, and even organize a fundraiser to support the center's programs. It wasn't just about impressing Ella anymore, it was about finding A. The confrontation with Eric had left a lingering tension at the community center, but it also opened a door Ella hadn't expected. Liam's steadfast support in that moment had touched something deep within her, a part of her heart she thought she had sealed off. Yet, she couldn't deny the scars of the past, and trust remained an elusive thread between them. In the days that followed, Liam continued his work at the center with renewed determination. His interactions with the community grew deeper, and he began to take ownership of several projects. One of the most ambitious was an initiative to expand the center's services, a plan to build a satellite facility in a neighboring town. The proposal required extensive funding and logistical planning, and Liam threw himself into the task, eager to prove his commitment. Ella watched from a distance, her emotions a tangled web of admiration, caution, and disbelief. It wasn't lost on her how much effort Liam was putting into his work, but the memory of his earlier abandonment still loomed large. Could a man who had once walked away truly be capable of the transformation she was witnessing? She wanted to believe it, but fear of being hurt again held her back. One evening, Ella found herself working late in her office, poring over grant applications for the expansion project. The soft hum of the building was soothing, and for a moment, she felt a rare sense of calm. Just as she was about to call it a night, there was a knock at her door. She looked up to see Liam standing there, holding a stack of papers. "Thought you might need these," he said, stepping inside. Ella glanced at the documents. They were detailed fundraising plans, complete with potential donor lists and projected budgets. "You've been busy," she said, her tone guarded. "I wanted to make sure we're covering all our bases," Liam replied, setting the papers on her desk. "This expansion means a lot to the people here. And to you." Ella studied him for a moment. "Why are you really doing this, Liam? Is it just guilt? Or is there something more?" Liam hesitated, then sat down across from her. "It started as guilt," he admitted. "I won't lie about that. But being here, working with you, seeing the lives you've touched, it's changed me, Ella. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm doing something that matters. And yes, I want to make things right with you. But more than that, I want to be someone you can be proud of. Even if we never," he trailed off, unsure of how to finish the sentence. Ella felt a lump rise in her throat. She wanted to believe him, but the fear of vulnerability held her back. "Actions speak louder than words," she said softly. Liam nodded. "I know. And I'm not done proving myself." As the weeks passed, the expansion project began to take shape. Liam's connections in the corporate world proved invaluable, and he managed to secure several large donations. Ella, meanwhile, focused on rallying local support, organizing community events to raise awareness and funds. Their teamwork was seamless, and for the first time in years, Ella felt a sense of partnership with Liam, not as a husband, but as an equal. But just as things seemed to be moving forward, another twist threatened to derail everything. During a routine review of the center's finances, Ella discovered a significant discrepancy. Several large payments had been made to a company she didn't recognize. Alarmed, she delved deeper and realized the company was a shell corporation linked to Eric. The revelation hit her like a punch to the gut. Eric hadn't just been angry, he had been plotting. He had found a way to siphon funds from the center, jeopardizing everything she and her team had worked for. Panic set in as Ella realized the extent of the damage. The missing funds threatened to stall the expansion project and could even lead to legal repercussions for the center. Ella called an emergency meeting with her team, including Liam. When she explained the situation, the room fell silent. The staff looked to her for answers, but for the first time, she felt utterly powerless. Liam broke the silence. "We'll fix this," he said firmly. "Whatever it takes, we'll make it right." "How?" Ella asked, her voice trembling. "We don't have the money to cover this. And if word gets out, it could ruin the center's reputation. Liam thought for a moment, then said, "Let me handle Eric." Ella's eyes widened. "No. You don't know what he's capable of, Liam. He's dangerous." "I'm not afraid of him," Liam said. "This is my fault as much as anyone's. I should have seen the signs when he showed up. I'll make sure he can't hurt you, or the center, again." Despite her protests, Liam began digging into Eric's activities. Using his connections and resources, he uncovered a trail of fraudulent transactions that led directly to Eric's accounts. Armed with this evidence, Liam approached the authorities and filed a formal complaint. It wasn't long before Eric was arrested, and the stolen funds were frozen, allowing the center to recover most of the missing money. The ordeal left Ella shaken but also deeply grateful. Liam's actions had saved the center from disaster, and for the first time, she saw him as someone she could rely on. Her walls began to crack, and she found herself opening up to him in ways she hadn't thought possible. One evening, after a long day at the center, Liam and Ella sat together on the front steps of the building, watching the sun set over the town. The silence between them was comfortable, a far cry from the tension that had defined their interactions in the past. "I don't know how to thank you," Ella said finally. "You didn't have to do all this." "Yes, I did," Liam replied. "Not just for you, but for me. I needed to prove to myself that I could be better. That I could be someone worth trusting." Ella looked at him, her heart heavy with conflicting emotions. "You've changed, Liam. I can see that. But trust isn't something that happens overnight." "I know," he said. "And I'll keep working for it, as long as it takes." As they sat together, a sense of hope began to bloom between them. It wasn't a promise of reconciliation, but it was a start, a chance to rebuild something they had both thought was lost forever. The months that followed Eric's arrest brought a mix of relief and new challenges for Ella and Liam. The community center had narrowly avoided disaster, and with the stolen funds recovered, the expansion project was back on track. Yet, for Ella, the emotional toll of everything she had endured left her questioning what she truly wanted from her life, and from Liam. The night before the groundbreaking ceremony for the new satellite facility, Ella found herself alone at the center, walking through the quiet halls. The space was imbued with memories, some joyful, others painful. It was here she had poured her heart into creating a place of hope for others, even as her own life had felt fractured. Now, standing on the brink of a new chapter, she wondered if she could find that same hope for herself. As she walked into the main hall, she was startled to find Liam there, setting up chairs for the next day's event. He looked up and smiled softly, but there was something different about him tonight, an air of calm, of quiet confidence she hadn't seen in years. "You didn't have to stay late," Ella said, her voice carrying a hint of surprise. "I wanted to make sure everything was perfect for tomorrow," Liam replied. "This is a big moment, for the center, for the community, and for you." Ella hesitated before stepping closer. "You've done a lot for this place, Liam. More than I ever expected. I didn't think you'd stay, let alone fight for it the way you have." Liam set down the chair he was holding and turned to face her. "I wasn't just fighting for the center, Ella. I was fighting for something bigger. For a second chance, not just with you, but with myself. I've made mistakes, more than I can count, but being here has shown me what I was missing. This place, these people, they've given me purpose. And so have you." Ella's heart ached at his words. She could see the sincerity in his eyes, the depth of his transformation. But she couldn't ignore the scars of the past, the lingering doubt that whispered in the back of her mind. "Liam, I want to believe you," she said, her voice trembling. "I really do. But trust, it's not something that comes easily for me anymore." "I know," Liam said softly. "And I don't expect it to. All I'm asking for is a chance to keep proving myself, to you, to the community, and to myself. Whatever it takes, I'll do it." The vulnerability in his voice pierced through Ella's defenses, and for a moment, she allowed herself to imagine a future where forgiveness was possible. But before she could respond, the sound of her phone buzzing broke the moment. She glanced at the screen and saw a message from one of the center's volunteers, alerting her to a problem with the event permits for the ceremony. Ella's stomach dropped. The permits were critical, and without them, the groundbreaking event might have to be postponed. She quickly explained the situation to Liam, who immediately offered to help. "Let's go," he said. "We'll fix this together." The next few hours were a whirlwind of phone calls, rushed paperwork, and last-minute negotiations. Liam's resourcefulness and calm demeanor amazed Ella. He navigated the bureaucratic hurdles with ease, using his connections to expedite the process. By midnight, the permits were secured, and the event was back on track. As they drove back to the center, Ella couldn't help but feel a renewed sense of gratitude, and something more. Liam had stood by her side, not just in this moment but throughout the many challenges they had faced together. His actions spoke louder than any words could. The next day, the groundbreaking ceremony was a resounding success. The community turned out in droves, their faces alight with hope and excitement for the future. As Ella stood at the podium, addressing the crowd, she felt a surge of pride, not just for what they had accomplished, but for the resilience and strength of the people around her. Liam watched from the sidelines, his heart swelling with a mix of emotions. He had worked tirelessly to earn his place here, to be a part of something meaningful. But as he saw Ella standing there, radiant and strong, he realized that his journey wasn't just about redemption, it was about love. A love he had nearly destroyed but now cherished more than ever. After the ceremony, as the crowd began to disperse, Liam approached Ella. She turned to him, her eyes shining with a mixture of exhaustion and joy. "You were incredible up there," Liam said, his voice filled with admiration. "So were you," Ella replied. "I couldn't have done this without you." Liam hesitated, then said, "Ella, I know I've said this before, but I need you to know how much this, all of this, means to me. Not just the center, but being here with you. I don't know if you'll ever be able to forgive me, but I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make up for the pain I caused." Ella looked at him, her heart pounding. She saw the man he had become, the lengths he had gone to for her and the community. And for the first time in years, she felt a glimmer of hope, not just for the center, but for herself. "I don't know what the future holds, Liam," she said softly. "But I think I'm ready to take it one step at a time." Liam nodded, his eyes filled with gratitude. "That's all I could ever ask for." As they stood there, surrounded by the echoes of laughter and celebration, Ella felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in years, she believed it was a road worth traveling. Months later, the new facility opened its doors, serving even more families in need. The community rallied around the center, its success a testament to the power of resilience and second chances. And though Ella and Liam's journey was far from over, they faced it together, ready to rebuild not just the center, but the trust and love they had once shared. Their story became a beacon of hope for others, a reminder that even in the face of heartbreak and betrayal, redemption was possible, and love, when nurtured, could bloom again. And as the sun set on the town that evening, it cast a golden glow over the center, a symbol of the strength and unity that had brought them all together.